orchestration is an important thing across the entire ecosystem, and I'm going to talk a lot about that. So it's really about, the current blockchain is a bunch of discrete systems that, in spite of how hard it is to play across them, there's 555 billion in bridge TV hours, right? In assets on one chain that were dragged over by hook or by crook from another chain using the various bridges that we have available. And that's increased by 200% year over year since last year, right? People are as a couple of people said, they eat glass in order to do this. It's so important, right? And something like $8 billion a day moving back and forth across some of these bridges. And so it is pervasive and important and is a key element of the next generation of applications. But in spite of that, it is incredibly hard, right? A user that wants to actually use their assets on one chain, use their assets on ETH to buy an NFT on Polygon or on Solana or on Stargaze, right? The amount of work they have to go to get something that involves even just more than one chain is multiple signatures with multiple wallets, with multiple activities happening on those multiple chains that they have to manually go through step by step. And if you've ever talked to anyone or you've done it themselves, okay, I just did a transfer. Is it, what's it? Maybe it took 10 minutes. Who do I call? Right. So this is one of those things where it's extremely difficult, and yet there's, $555 billion, which at that point you're talking real money, right? That people have bridged in this way in order to accomplish financial goals, social goals, etc. What we do is, and what orchestration does, is it makes this simpler. Right? And so it makes it so that your actions are a seamless extension where the user can specify an action that spans more than one chain, that spans more than one block, right? All those prior systems, right? They're designed to provide monolithic experiences inside of a single chain, right? Ethereum was going to be the only chain and everything would be on it. And so was Solana, and so was Polygon, and so was every other chain that started out. And that's just not the way the world works, right? And yet, so they built the system where you can build application on a single chain, and mostly you program by building transactions that can only start and end within a block. And human use cases don't start and end within a block. They start with my problem, which might be over here, and they end with my solution, which might be over there. And so that's where we're building this new approach with orchestration, where I can sign a single action and a smart contract bridges the work, activates the work, executes the work across multiple chains, spanning multiple blocks of activity, right? I'm sign a single transaction and takes my money out of DYDX, moves it over, buys Sol, moves it over Solana, trades it for another thing, moves that over to Polygon and puts it into a pool. And it wants to do that, once a day after I said, yeah, do this every day. Right? That's what users want. That's what, in order to reach the millions of users out there that are not Web3 natives, that we'll need to do is provide them those simple experiences that are the seamless experience that they want, rather than the technical details of what we have all implemented so far. And we achieve that, the orchestration infrastructure in Agoric achieves that by directly supporting, and this is the unique thing about the Agoric platform, by directly supporting multi-block actions, where I can have an action that says, unbond that and wait for the 7 days it takes, and when you're done, go do this other thing, and that's 2 lines of code, right? It's not a giant state machine written in an opaque language that only a few experts in the world can understand. It's instead something that is written in JavaScript that millions of programmers can easily understand, because it maps directly to the use case I was trying to express. And so there's this natural thing where we can handle multi-block, we can react to changes in the environment, we can use timers, and we can generally integrate with the kinds of programming environments that developers expect to produce the kinds of programs that directly express the use cases that users have. And so some of those are like boosted DCA. I'll talk about that in a moment. Fast USDC, I'll talk about that. And we have Yelena here who will talk about Noble's perspective on this later, which I'm so excited about. Yield maximizer, where on-chain we can be watching the prices, get an Oracle notification, go, oh, it's time to rebalance my portfolio. Let me pull my assets out of here because the yield or the price have changed, move it over into that vault over there that's on a different chain in a different ecosystem, right? Pull it out of an Aave curve, move it over and put it into a DYDX megavault or something. Staking management, we've got multiple people that are working on applications where they've got a token, right? They've launched a new chain, the token is doing well, they would like to provide more things for their token holders to do, and whether that's automatically doing liquid staking or taking their token and taking it over into an Aave pool or a pool, Nolus pool in Cosmos, wherever it is, being able to automate those processes so they are single button in spite of the fact that they span these multiple chains is really critical. Whoops, I just hit there. Cross-chain onboarding, right? One of the things, a couple of things that happen with this explosion of modular chains, right? The modular explosion, the roll-up explosion, all that, is you get the application thesis, as people have said it, where it's got a chain whose job is to do one thing, right? You've got a chain whose job is just to do liquid staking, where it takes a staking token, stakes it, and does the automatic compounding. It gives you a liquid token so you can use this staked asset elsewhere. That chain is utterly worthless without all the other chains that are producing the tokens that they're staking. It's utterly worthless without all the other marketplaces that are running on other chains that you take the liquid stake token and deploy it into a pool or into a yield farm or you lend it to a friend or you use it to signify that you've been participating in the chain. Whatever you're doing with these assets, they're necessarily cross-chain. That's some of what's been driving those hundreds of billions of dollars of cross-chain activity. But the use cases that people want, the things that people need to in order to make this happen more easily and more broadly, is the simple expression of those use cases into smart contracts so you can do them all with a single signature. And so there's all those use cases. This is on Agoric, people are building them. We've got full deployment out in Cosmos. The EVM system is in final development and test, so it's now on testnets. There's an API you can start to build your things with in order to roll them out in early Q2. Solana and other chains are in progress. You'll hear more about those possibly later. And we've got several projects that are building these things in various stages of development and deployment. And so it's a very exciting time for orchestration as we start to see it just start to launch now and grow out and prove the value of this across the various multiple ecosystems that we're all going to be working with. Okay, so let's talk about that AutoStack, that boosted DCA, right? AutoStack is a simple use case that is being worked on for mostly non-crypto end users that want to be able to build up a leveraged position over time with that is more leverage than just the money they're putting in, right? So I want to be able to get a position that is worth, from my bank. I want to build up $150 a week into a new token position, but I want that leverage, so I'm going to expect $30 back every time, right? And that way what I'm building is a $150 a week position for $120. That turns out to be something that a lot of non-crypto users are used to as a kind of thing they can do, right? I want to build up a leverage position. Yeah, there'll be some debt there, but it's pretty low risk. I'm good with this. Give me more power, right? Let me invest with, dollar cost averaging to deal with the volatility and give me a little more power than just my simple account. So how does that work, right? Behind the scenes, to make that happen, it requires a lot of work, right? I sign a transaction, I go to the app, I sign a transaction that will authorize an on-ramp like Cato or one of these other things to take money from my bank account or my credit card, $150 every month. And it will then buy a token, right? So it goes out to Osmosis or Uniswap or what have you, buy a token, in this case, STETH, take it to a lending market, deploy it in the lending market, and borrow against it a small fraction, just 20%, and send that in cash back to the off-ramp and into my bank account. So I, the user that don't have any crypto wallet, I set this up once, I authorize it once, and then an automated on-chain transaction. So it's not subject to off-chain cheating, it's not subject to being rugged, it's just executing on-chain, is going to continually every week buy me some ETH, borrow 20% against it in order to lever up and give me back that cash. And so effectively, I'm getting 20% additional leverage on my accumulating ETH position. This is just, one of the things that a use case that some people wanted, someone's looking at, someone's building, that uses a bunch of surprisingly complicated stuff underneath that we've all built at these individual pieces and pulls it together into a simple use case that then literally billions of people could potentially use. So that's sort of a more advanced what happens when orchestration gets to the broader market with this rich, cross-chain activity using lots of DeFi primitives to deploy them and use them in ways that people don't currently anticipate. FastUSDC is a project that we started to solve a really simple problem. And it's a really simple problem with really important use cases. Getting USDC off of ETH takes 20 minutes. Right? If you want to get USDC into Cosmos, or you want to get it to YDX, to Osmosis, just to Noble to be prepared to spend it on something, if you want to buy Celestia tokens, with your savings that are on, or your position that's on ETH, it's going to take you 20 minutes. And let me tell you, when you push a button and have to wait 20 minutes, there's a really good chance you never finish. This is where that onboarding thing is, right? The number of users that DYDX, as an example, loses because, push button to get your money over there and it's 20 minutes. Yeah, I got interrupted. I got a phone call. I had to leave. My kids had a problem, or I just got bored, right? You got to be able to do that stuff while you wait, and that was the goal of FastUSDC. But we wanted to do it using the underlying infrastructure that provides reliable, high assurance transactions, right? And so this is a simple example of this where you'll hear more and maybe see more in the demos floating around later of the integration into Noble Express. But fundamentally, I've got USDC on one chain, on ETH, on Base, on Arbitrum, wherever it is, and I want to get it into Celestia. Right? Or in order to buy something, or in order to fund a roll-up that's coming out, or in order to trade in Eclipse, or whatever it is, right? And I want to do that in under a minute. I don't want to take 20 minutes because by then I will have moved on. Right? And indeed, we know people move on. So how does that work, right? Now maybe some of you have seen the solver, the intent-style systems like Across that use off-chain liquidity and off-chain market makers and that sort of thing. Am I okay on audio here? And so this is not that. This is on-chain orchestration, where I sign go to the app, I get a transaction to sign, I sign a native standard CCDB transaction, right? The Circle standard transaction that will transfer money to an account on Noble, right? Noble is the issuer of USDC inside of the entire interchain Cosmos ecosystem, right? And so it'll sign that transaction. So this is all on-chain. If nothing happens in the smart contract, the money's still going to move. They do all the, the vetting of the transactions, all that sort of stuff. And we noticed that, and this was constructed as a transaction to a Noble account that's controlled by the FastUSDC contract. And it will notice the transaction appearing early in the ETH system, and it will advance the funds out of a liquidity pool. Right? So it's an on-chain solver that has a policy that it will apply on transactions and go, that transaction I'm going to go ahead and advance. It will then send it to the destination, any available destination to the smart contract, where it's any IBC destination, and in the future, any CCDB destination. So this will go to Solana or other platforms. But fundamentally, the target is get into ETH quickly. And then 20 minutes later, the CCTB transaction flows through, gets finalized, the money is delivered to the FastUSDC contract, and we have now settled, right? So instead of there being a whole lot of float and a whole lot of overcapitalization, this all completely finishes settling in 20 minutes, right? There's no multi-day settling. There's no, balances, and I've got to slosh stuff back and forth and so forth. It's all done in 20 minutes, and then that liquidity can be reused for more transactions. And so there's this flowing liquidity pool of transactions streaming through here that is very efficient and in terms of capitalization, and very performant, because this process is, oh, I noticed your CCTB transaction. Let me advance the money immediately, right, within the next block. Okay, and so what's important about that, is this is a space where the world is changing rapidly, right? Intense, and solving this problem of how do we move liquidity around quickly and easily is critically important. And some things are going really well in other approaches, and some things are really sucking in other approaches. The important thing is having these multiple approaches where this has substantial value to the community. It is strongly decentralized. It's all running in smart contracts. So it has the integrity we expect of smart contracts. It has crowdsourced liquidity instead of private liquidity where only market makers can participate. the availability and liquidity of that liquidity is transparent. So instead of going, I'm going to try this transaction, oh, nobody bid, I'm sorry, you're out of luck. You can't send $18,200. You can only send $18,100. And you can, I'm not going to tell you that. I'm just going to tell you no. Bring me a different color rock and maybe I'll solve that transaction. And people have encountered that in numerous cases where, oh, well, you can get it to that path, but you can't get it to that chain because the market maker didn't have liquidity there, right? So the ability to have crowdsource where, I as a protocol can bring liquidity if I really want to make sure something happens, the ability to have it be visible, the ability to have it be transparent, what's happening, the fact that settlement is automated. So when this finishes, everyone's settled. Whereas in the off-chain solver things, the market makers have to do this out of band, and they do it through centralized exchanges. They do it with massive over-collateralization that isn't really sustainable over time, all those kinds of things, right? And then finally, it is part of orchestration. It integrates smoothly with orchestration. And so it is vastly more programmable, right? For us, for Noble, for users, transferring money is not what we want to do. People don't transfer money because that excites them. People transfer money because they want to do something with it. They want to buy a thing at the other end. They want to cover their position on a loan. They want to set up an education fund for their kids, right? They want to do something with that money. The ability to have it extend into the rest of orchestration is in some sense the most important part of, I'm going to buy into that launch and stake the token and compound it daily, take my money from that blockchain and make that happen, right? And do it while I'm watching because I want to see that happened. I want to see that I participated. That's what people want to do. And so tying the fast USDC to leverage all the infrastructure we've all built to make the transfers happen easily and then be able to grow that to be a part of exciting end-to-end use cases the users directly care about is really, really important. And so we're really excited. And so, the ability to do those multi-block actions, the ability to sign one thing and have the smart contract carry out the actions across multiple chains, that's what gives us that unique ability to do seamless cross-chain workflows, right? That's what gives the ability to remote control multiple chains in order on your behalf, right? The ability to, for a chain, for an application, add functionality that incorporates all those other chains out there, right? They exist to add some value. They don't, as I said, liquid staking doesn't exist in a vacuum. Swapping is uninteresting unless someone's actually swapping to use it elsewhere. All of those pieces, instead of having to send people over there and give away your customer, you get to keep them, you get to bring their functionality in and deliver richer and richer functionality as part of your applications. That's the keep users on the platform. And once you get there, like that fairly simple boosted DCA thing that is an example of something that users actually asked for, even though they aren't crypto wonks, right? The ability to add new economics, add new kinds of value is what the future requires. In Web 2, applications are UI, talking to orchestration layer, talking to microservices. There's a reason for that, and we're migrating in that direction. So Web 3 applications will be UI, talking to orchestrations, talking to microservices that are contracts and blockchains, and providing these use cases that span them and really deliver user value. So that's what we're all here for. I'm really excited to have a lot of other people talking about exactly what they're doing in that space, and I'm really excited to be deploying this stuff. I guess I will end with just a tiny little bit more. As I said, the IBC connected orchestration is all out and people are building on it. We've got fast USDC that is now in alpha testing on chain, and you'll see a bunch of activity on that on chain, already. But it will be going live next month. And a few other folks are launching, as well as the EVM APIs now being ready for people to start building with. So we're very excited that you're all here and look forward to what people show you. Thank you.